Let's talk about John Wick Chapter 4 without spoilers. No spoilers. The movie just opened 2 days ago. I'm not going to do that. Anyway, John Wick Chapter 3 was not a good movie for me. It focused so heavily on the world building that it forgot to tell a complete story, and I just did not like that movie and have not revisited it. The first John Wick, though, is easily one of the best action movies of the last 10 years, and it's probably top tier action movie of all time. But as the franchise has progressed, it's gone further and further away from what made the first John Wick good. It was innovative in the action space. It was fresh in the area of world building, but it was still streamlined and pretty clean and simple storytelling wise. We had a nice emotional investment, and there was an element of danger to the fight scenes. They were incredible. He was obviously best in class at everything he did, but there was still danger. As this franchise has progressed, though, the danger element has been slipping away. The introduction of the bulletproof dress jacket in the second film was really the space where I feel like the movie franchise jumped the shark. And now the way it's used in this film destroys any intensity as far as the danger element. And I've seen people online comparing the action in this movie to the action in Terminator 2, saying that it's finally a movie that does action better than that movie. I disagree, because Terminator 2 still had an element of fear and of danger. This one doesn't have that. The action in this movie is wonderful to watch. The choreography is stunning. What they are able to execute, even with some really bad CGI kind of coating everything, is pretty incredible. But it is more akin to watching a musical with incredible dance numbers than it is an intense action fight scene driven film. Because I was never worried about John Wick at all, because I knew he would get bloodied and then continue on, because he's become superhero levels of badass at this point. The specific action set piece that people are losing their mind about in Act 3 pulled me completely out of the movie. I found myself sitting there looking at the screen asking, are we watching a movie or playing a video game? We've already had Hardcore Henry. We don't have to have this. But they did it. I mean, it's pretty nicely executed, but for me, it was just going too far. It was stepping too far over the line, breaking the fourth wall too much, nodding at their video game fans that watch this movie, and forgetting to be a movie. And I don't mean to sound too negative, because I really did have a good time. I just don't feel like there's anything that's resonating with me in that way. And in fact, my feelings about the movie have sort of gone a little more negative as I've had time to think about it. This is an incredible roller coaster ride, but not a great movie. Is it a better movie than 3? Hell yes. Hell yes. The humor that's in this movie is the more subtle pieces of humor I enjoyed more than the more overt sort of Looney Tunes cartoony humor, because I liked the villain in the first John Wick because he was intense and scary. The villains here are more just humorous and silly. This kind of reminds me of what happened with the villains in the Bond franchise during the Roger Moore era of films. They just get a little too ridiculous at that point. Although, all Bond villains are kind of ridiculous. But, yeah, I don't mean to sound so negative, because there's so much good here. There's a lot of fun action choreography, even if it doesn't really mean anything emotionally. It's still fun to watch. It's still really fun to watch. Even the elements of the film where there is some really bad CGI are often very funny. All of that's great. Keanu Reeves in this role is great. Lawrence Fishburne is a ton of fun, even though he doesn't get enough to do. I don't know why they don't let him do more in this franchise, because he's so much fun. I mean, he owns it to Shakespearean levels. So, yeah, it's good. I'm glad to see John Wick at least back and fun. I just miss the intensity and danger of it all that was in the first film. And I do feel the lore, while they do a really interesting and fun job of being consistent with the lore across all the movies, little nods to previous movies and aspects of previous movies. You don't necessarily have to have seen those movies to appreciate the sequence, but if you've seen them, especially more than once, those little nods are pretty neat, pretty cool. The lore does feel weighty on the franchise, though. It almost feels like looking back at Star Trek movies when they just had to do a reboot because they had gotten so convoluted in the franchise. I feel like we're on the way to that with John Wick because things are just getting so ridiculous lore-wise. I still liked it, though. I still like that element of it. All of this ends up being about a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd because there's a lot of fun stuff here. There's a lot of sad things that I wish were back in the franchise that are gone. I don't like the video game aspect of it. This is the true definition. When Martin Scorsese talks about how these types of movies, he's talking about superhero movies, but I think John Wick fits too, are more of a roller coaster than a piece of cinema. This is a wonderful roller coaster ride. But is it a movie with any meat on the bone? No. Is that okay? Yeah, I guess it's all right. It's fine. It's a good time can be had. Weirdly, though, and I wonder if you guys can tell me if you had this experience, I feel like the dialogue was down in the mix a little too much in parts of the movie. Let me know what you think. Anyway, don't come at me in the comments if you love this movie and it's 5 out of 5 for you. That is awesome. I'm glad it's 5 out of 5 for you. It's 3 out of 5 for me, and I still had a good time. I still liked it. I can pick out a dozen other action movies that are better, but I still had a good time. I still liked it, and I'm thankful that it is back to a level of quality higher than that of 3, because 3 was a bad enough movie that I was almost ready to dip out of the franchise. So anyway, there's my thoughts. I love to talk about it a little more. Just like what you like. Don't hate me in the comments. This is just my opinion. Let me know what you think.